Welcome back to Sub2 Investor. My name is Hans, and in this episode, I'll be breaking down a real-life Sub2 deal that I took down myself, and then I wrapped it in a contract for deed, selling it on seller financing, and it generates really solid cash flow every single month. It's kind of in a weird location for it being such a great deal that it is. This is part of my real Sub2 deal breakdown playlist where I am reviewing actual deals that I hold in my portfolio so that you can see how the sausage is made in these kinds of deals. There's all sorts of gurus out there who want to sell you expensive online courses and coaching programs, but do they actually break down deals that they've done in extreme detail so that you can really wrap your head around how to do these kinds of deals? If you don't know my background already, when I got into real estate, I found creative financing within a couple years after doing some wholesaling. And once I got into creative finance, within a couple years, I was able to replace my 9-to-5 job. I was able to become financially independent, at least what I call stage 1 financial independence, where, I'm covering my basic living expenses just within a couple years of buying properties sub-2 and then doing my exit strategy, which is to sell on seller finance or to do a lease option. That's what this channel is all about. In this video, you're going to see a real deal in action. This is a good one. Let's check it out. All right, well, no surprise, I found this deal from an expired MLS low equity list. This is a list that I build, I curate it every single month. We send a postcard to the owner of this property, as I like to do, and as really lands me a lot of good Sub2 deals. So this is how we got that deal. Postcard in the mail, multiple postcards before the owner of the property calls us off the postcard, but eventually he calls us. He had tried to list his property on the market to sell it, but it did not sell. There was some issue with the pool and some other inspection items that he just didn't want to deal with. Wasn't able to sell the property, so it got listed as expired listing. And then when we go to pull that list, either off of the actual MLS, which is how I like to do it in my local market, or if you're virtual and you don't have MLS, you could use PropStream for sure. Check the link in the description below if you want to use my referral code and just say thanks for your videos. But anyways, you can use PropStream to get this kind of list. It's called a failed listing list. I can teach you how to use it very precisely to get these kinds of deals. But the seller calls us off the postcard. This is a younger gentleman, and he just wants to go travel the world. And he's got this mortgage. The house is not a very inexpensive house. It's kind of a median priced house. So even though he had a good interest rate, a really good interest rate, that mortgage payment wasn't something that he wanted to be making every single month as he went abroad and traveled the world. Neither did he want to be a landlord, but he wanted to sell the house. Essentially, the seller was totally on board with Sub2. He saw the logic in passing over this really good interest rate loan. We'll go over the numbers in just a minute. Hang tight. He had a really great interest rate, and he understood that if he sold to us on terms, basically subject to, then he would be able to make a lot more money than if he were to make some concessions and go back on the market. So this gentleman walked away with a lot more cash, probably like 80% more cash than he would have had he just hung tight and sold it on the market. Now, he was of the sort of risk profile where he just trusted us to make the mortgage payments. He was pretty much on board. He understood it, and so the closing went smoothly. Really love these kinds of deals where you just have very cooperative and motivated sellers who are not going to make a big fuss, just can tell they get it, you're transparent, they understand, hey, this loan might go to maturity and we may not pay it off before then, and he's cool with that. I say all this with my attitude being, number one rule of Sub2 is you always make the mortgage payments on time, right? So I'm operating with that cardinal rule in my business, and so should anybody doing Sub2 deals. We closed on the property. Now, this property, let me tell you where this property was, because you're probably wondering. This is a town in southern Illinois, kind of a rural area. However, this particular town has a decent sized population. Like, it definitely has at least one Walmart, like a super center Walmart. And if a town has a large Walmart like that within the vicinity, well, then you're dealing with a decent population. People don't have to drive an hour into town to get gas or to get groceries and stuff like that. These are the kinds of towns that I feel comfortable with doing doing deals, and generally speaking, and this was one such town, about 3 hours away from St. Louis, which is where I do the majority of my deals. And the house needed like really nothing in order for us to place a great buyer in the property. So let me show you photos of this property real quick so that you can get a sense of the kind of house that you can go out there, purchase, and just make really solid cash flow from. All right, so here is the front of the house. Kind of cool architectural design on the front going on there. Little fountain. Really large lot with some mature trees, cool second level patio off the back, swimming pool in the back, which had issues. I think our buyer ended up just filling in the pool. Little shed in the back. And then on the inside, pretty cool multi-level house with these kind of cool looking staircases, some carpet, some hardwood. Your kitchen is pretty updated, not the most updated, maybe 20 years ago updated. But I just love houses that are just, a lot of people could be great buyers for these houses, people with large families looking for a lot of space. Nothing needs to be done on this house. Really, just it didn't have the equity it needed to sell. Obviously, a new owner might want to update this hotel-looking bathroom. It's just a little too sterile and cold for my personal likings. But man, just don't assume that other people have the same tastes and preferences that you do and would make the same decisions that you would when you're doing real estate. Really cool design. I mean, these little marble pillars are pretty rad. There's going to be a buyer for this house that just thinks this house is the bee's knees. So this gives you an idea of, I love this kind of house, the house that I really like to buy. They even have an outdoor sink and bar area. Really cool. Now let me bring you to the numbers on this deal. So you can see over here on the left column right over here, acquisition and loan details. All right, I'm just going to go over all the numbers. This is the secret sauce, guys. We bought the house for $238, all right, and we sold it for $259, which means we marked up the house without touching it. We didn't do anything. In fact, we took stuff from the garage that the seller left there. I have a style chainsaw that I got that I used to cut down trees in my yard that's from that house. We didn't put a dime into repairs. Literally, we had some utility bills. That's it. Marked the house up $21,000. So we got full value, and then probably just a little bit after that, which is totally fair when you're selling on terms and providing the financing to your buyer. In fact, Fannie, I believe it's Fannie, or if it's FHA, they actually recognize in their appraisal guidelines, the house's appraised value goes up a little bit. Like there's a box for appraisers to check if the seller is offering financing, so that will boost the value of the house a little bit. When I talk about marking up a house because we're offering seller financing, it's recognized even by the government that this is an asset the house comes with that increases value. Loan balance on the loan is $213. So we brought the seller $25K of cash, $25,000 cash to seller. So that's a significant chunk. We gave him all his equity. And then what we got on a down payment was $26,000 right here. So what we had in this deal was very little. Some utility bills, some closing costs. So here are our closing costs over here, $1,300, I'll call it $1,400. Guys, we basically made all of our money back on the down payment from this deal, which means we have a near infinite cash on cash return. Let's just say we did make all of our money back. We didn't quite, but if we had, it'd be an infinite return. But as it is right now, it's got to be like a, 1,000% return. It's something ridiculous. It's basically an infinite return because we were able to get a large down payment. Now, our interest rate is the best part about this deal. I mean, it really is, because who can find 2.99 ever again? Like, it just doesn't exist, and it may never exist for my lifetime. Who knows? We arbitraged this interest rate and got offered actually what's right now a very fair interest rate in 2025, April of 2025. A 6.92% interest rate is very fair. In fact, that's a good interest rate for seller financing right now. And historically, interest rates have hovered around 7 or 7.5, somewhere in there. Like if you average out the entire history of mortgage interest rates. Guys, this is, I think our buyers are pretty happy that they locked in the 6.92 to interest rate for this loan that we gave them on a contract for deed. What does it look like cash flow wise? Well, basically our mortgage payment is $1,675 and we receive $2,287, which creates a cash flow spread. It's calculated from the interest rate difference, but also from the purchase price, or really the loan balance difference as well. So our cash flow is $611 a month from this property. A little more detailed information, property taxes for, Illinois, property taxes are pretty high. And so that's a pretty hefty property tax bill. If this were a house in St. Louis, it'd be half that probably, but it's Illinois. And so you got to pay taxes. And then our insurance premium over here. If I scroll down to our profit analysis, at year 5, we'll have made $68,000 on the deal total. And if this deal goes 10 years, which is what I anticipate most deals going on average about 10 years, then we'll have made we'll call it $115,000 on this one deal where literally we don't really do anything. We just collect the payments and we service the note ourselves. There's very little for us to do except to take the interest income at this point and then the principal as well. If the deal goes 30 years, then we'll have netted $223,000 if this deal goes 30 years. Guys, this is why be a lender. Don't be a landlord. Yes, if you're a landlord, this property will go up in value in 30 years, and maybe you'll end up netting the same amount, but you have done all of this work. I mean, a lot more work and a lot more expenditures and stuff like that. If this deal goes 30 years, maybe the house is appreciated that much. And if I'm a landlord, if I were just holding it as a long-term rental, I could cash it out and maybe that's boom, I made nearly $250,000 on that one deal. However, I did a ton of work. I was stressed out. I was dealing with tenants, toilets, and trash, and vacancies and turnovers, and flaky contractors who are price gouging me, not showing up to the job, all this stuff. Or I just sell it with seller financing and I net the same amount over 30 years on the deal and I don't do anything. Literally all of my work is up front on that deal. And if this buyer defaults and I have to take the property back, then I can capture the appreciation and start the whole cycle again, collect another down payment, and then I can reset the amortization clock so that I begin collecting those interest payments up front. It's an amazing thing to be a lender on deals and not a landlord, because this appreciating asset is still my collateral. If my buyer defaults, I have an appreciating asset that I get to take back to make me whole. In my opinion, the magic isn't in the Sub2 deal, guys. The Sub2 deal is great. You get great financing. The secret sauce is in what you do with the property once you buy it. And that means creatively selling it with either seller financing or a lease purchase option. To me, that's really like how we make money on these deals. I'm into generating money like a bank, like mailbox money, like a mortgage company, like a bank, just every single month, send the cash flow. And I think that for most people out there watching these kinds of YouTube videos, they're just trying to get out of a job or create this income stream that's reliable where they can go pursue real estate full time. Maybe go after they do several of these deals, then go do an Airbnb because now you have some cash flow coming in. But at a bare minimum, just gaining that level of financial independence where you don't have to go in to do your day job. You can begin to be self-sustained in terms of paying for all of your expenses off of the income being generated from these kinds of deals. And to me, that's my vision. That's my business model. If that sounds appealing to you, if you're kind of tired of chasing after the big gurus who aren't really giving you the stuff that you need to know to get the deals done, you can reach out to me or go to my website, hans@sub2investor.com, or just go to sub2investor.com. You can check out the mentorship programs I have available. Also, my complete beginner's guide to creative real estate investing. Really fantastic online course to get you going. I hope you found this video inspiring, motivational. I believe in you. You guys can do this. It's not that hard. You just need a good mentor, somebody to guide you through the process to make sure you get the deal done correctly. And then you're off to the races, generating cash flow off of these deals, guys. Until next time, stay creative. Peace.